Hey folks, Tiff, the Static Dragon, and the Bank of Canada drop rates once again. Liberty Village traffic congestion has hit pandemonium level, and bankruptcy numbers are not looking good, which puts people in desperate situations. So we're going to talk about all this and more on this episode. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and I want to make a note of thanking all of the Apple and Spotify listeners. Thanks for tuning in on the podcast, folks. Got another good news story with the Bank of Canada. TIFF, the not so static dragon, dropped the prime lending rate by another quarter point this week. And that is now 2 drops going back to April and this month. And that's good news. It's really good news in the sense that we now have had 50 basis points in decreases, not necessarily moving the needle on any real estate activity, but what it does mean is that on a $100,000 mortgage using a variable product, that being a floating rate that is tied to the floating rate, that's a $500 savings a year now. That extra quarter point adds another $250. So we're seeing a $500 annual savings, which is about 40 odd bucks a month. It helps per 100,000. So if you got a $500,000 mortgage or you're carrying $500,000 on a line of credit, that works out to about $2,500 in savings per year, or about 200 bucks. And folks, with the driving increased cost of living and people scrimping their way through to get by the month, this helps. Now, what it is doing is still not enough because the market is slowing. We're seeing it tougher to find jobs. We're seeing the majority of new jobs on the employment numbers are part-time. So I'm suspecting a lot of people are supplementing their full-time income with part-time work, seeing that the majority of these jobs are part-time in nature. And the reality is people are running out of money before they run out of month, and it's still causing significant strain. Now, on the real estate front, not a lot of activity. Things are still slow, not a lot of transactions, but there is a lot more listings. We're seeing upwards of 20,000 plus listings on the market in the GTA, and just, the sales are sputtering. There's just nothing moving, and I don't think that this most recent drop is going to move the needle at all. What I will say is that as we are seeing more and more applicants, the credit bureau is telling a really interesting tale. The utilization of credit is increasing. People are starting to hit their max spending limits, their credit limits, that is. So that's a utilization rate. They're going up. And what that means is that more and more people are running out of rope or access to funds to use to make payments. Okay. And what we were seeing as folks started seeing these increases impact their mortgage payments, they started accessing lines of credits, credit cards, and whatnot to get through to make those payments. They're starting to run out of time. We're seeing insolvency numbers go up, bankruptcies go up, commercial insolvencies go up. Banks are tightening what they're lending on the small business front. And desperation is starting to set in. We're starting to see crime levels move up a little bit. We're seeing more and more car thefts. We're seeing a lot of stuff. This catch and release campaign that this federal government is offering us isn't working. When there's no deterrent, more and more folks are going to resort to this type of stuff, theft, a lot of robberies and whatnot just to get through. So desperate people do desperate things. We're starting to see crime move up. This is not a good sign. We need to get this under control, and it is going to take a while. I want to talk a little bit about housing starts. Housing starts have tumbled. We have kind of forgotten about the Housing Accelerator Fund. That was all the hoopla in the fall. Federal government went on a tour across the country, handing out money left, right, and center to municipalities to encourage them to speed up the process and encourage folks to build. Well, it's not happening, folks. We're down 9%, I believe, in June year over year. We're on track to build about 241,000 units, below what we needed and targeted at 255,000. A lot of developers are on pause. Folks are realizing that the taxes and development charges are getting to the point where it's not worth it to build. And I had a colleague of mine I was just talking to on the weekend. They're building in Texas. They're no longer going to build here in Ontario. And I asked him why, and he said the development charges to build in Texas in a town called McKinnon and Anna, Texas, just north of Dallas, is about $10,000 per year, per unit. $10,000. Where here it's upwards of north of $150,000. So where's the motivation for developers to build here when a lot of those charges need to be paid up front and some of those input taxes got to be paid at the permit level and whatnot? It doesn't make sense. So, this is going to be a problem. And folks, on the single family home level, there was only 54,000 single family home starts on a year over year basis. So there will be a supply crunch. Now, the positive is the immigration minister, Mark Miller, did send out a message to foreign students in the past week, and that is, you all can't stay. Many of these folks are up in arms. Many are protesting across the country about being sold a bill of goods, thinking that this education was a pathway to citizenship. And the reality is the government's basically finally said, no, that's not the case. You may not be able to stay here. And there aren't a lot of jobs for these folks. We are taking longer to find jobs for those that are looking for them. And the job market is softening. So this is not a good situation. And what concerns me is when you have our finance minister posting on X that our economy and the tools that they're using is working, she doesn't understand why there are rate cuts. The Bank of Canada cuts rates because things are in the shitter. Things are not good. When there's a rate drop, it's because things are bad, folks. They're not as rosy as she's painting it to be. And she should know better. And if there's one thing I can encourage all politicians, is you don't rub salt in the wounds of people that are struggling, because there's a lot of Canadians out there that are struggling, not being able to make ends meet, and they don't need cheerleaders claiming that everything is rosy. Okay, so it's unbelievable. Liberty Village, a great little community just north of the Gardiner, is struggling right now. Okay, the traffic congestion in Liberty Village has got a number of residents up in arms, thinking that their property values are going to be impacted. Now, why is this happening? Well, for those of you that don't know, the City of Toronto is undergoing a 2 to 3, 4-year campaign to renovate the Gardiner, or do construction work on the Gardiner Expressway, which means that the Gardiner over the next 2-3 years is down to one lane. This isn't a joke, folks. This is actually happening. That it's prompted a lot of folks to take detours through Liberty Village to try to get to where they need to go. So when you couple construction on the Gardiner with construction on King Street, you got Jameson down to one lane, you're going to see a number of people trying to make their way across the city through Liberty Village. Okay, now this has gotten so bad that the province of Ontario has offered to give the city, I believe it's 70 some odd $1 million, to add an extra shift so they could work 24/7 to get this construction done in one less year. It's still not going to solve the problem with congestion. And one has to wonder, when you have a major artery that's under construction down to one lane that brings the majority of folks into the city, why aren't you incenting them by using the GO transit? Okay. maybe during this construction period on weekends or whatever it is through peak times, you discount transit so you get more people on transit. Like, why aren't people collaborating, different departments collaborating with each other so that this congestion could be relieved a little bit? Like, folks, these politicians need to start using their heads to come up with solutions to solve the challenges this city is facing. Okay? It doesn't seem like nobody's talking to each other. Like, if you're going to know that for the next 3-4 years, there's going to be a major artery under construction down to one lane, which is, I don't know how many millions of people use this thing in a week, but it's got to be multi-million vehicles traveling in the Gardner. Put more emphasis on transit, put more trains on lines, like increase the motivation to use transit by maybe discounting it, let people get used to it, see the advantages of it. Like, it's one thing to complain, it's another thing to come up with some solutions, and we need to have people start thinking about encouraging folks to use transit, get off the roads, so we're not in the mess we're in. It's starting to become a real problem. And when you still have the mayor of Toronto going out talking about shit that doesn't matter and not focusing on the core services, this is what you get. You get chaos, okay? And everybody I speak to is complaining about traffic, complaining about taxes, complaining about costs of what things are. And everybody just throws more taxes at. Today, the mayor's talking about trying to incent homeowners to not have as much runoff off of hard surfaces on their lot. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you're going to incent me to get rid of my driveway and put grass? Like, folks, we need accountability. We need to have better ideas. And we need to have every level of government collaborating with each other and making sure they're working together. This is starting to be a bit of a gong show. Now, I want to thank all of the followers and folks that comment on the YouTube channel. I appreciate your calls for me to run for politics, but that's not my gig. Okay, I don't think I would last. I don't think I'd have the patience. But I will continue to hold them accountable. I will call them out, and I will celebrate successes as well. I just don't see a lot of them these days. And we need to focus on core services. Let's cut all the pet projects. And let's focus on making sure we can make this country run the way it used to run. Right now, it's a bit of a shit show. Let's get rid of these pet projects. Let's get back on track to help people live better and more prosperous lives. And right now, it's not happening on the education front, on the healthcare front, on the commute and transit front. It's just a shit show. So we need to start holding these folks accountable, calling them out, and we all have to make sure we vote. You all have a say, and it counts. So again, thank you for all the comments. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the weather and stay safe out there. And we'll see you next week. Take care.